Oh my
So there are a
goodness.
couple of things we're going to have to talk about here. And the first one we're going to talk about quite a lot in the course itself, especially in week number 7. Now, one thing you've got to think about here is the way that you are or were, sorry, I wasn't too clear if this was an ongoing thing or something that you finished now. The way that you are or were learning and practicing is basically fundamentally not very good. And it's a problem that a lot of people don't like. And certainly anybody who owns these kind of schools really don't like it, and will try to hide it and try to tell you that it's not the case as much as possible. But basically, just chatting randomly with a teacher is extremely ineffective for getting good at speaking English, for the exact reason that you just described. It's easy. That's it. Now, if you are talking with a teacher, especially, you're probably going to be working with the same teacher all the time. That teacher is one, probably trained to understand you, if not trained to understand you, because let's be honest, a lot of conversation teachers really have no training or skills at all, but they just happen to be a native speaker. But we'll put that aside for now. They're either trained to understand you, or they've been doing it long enough that they're just used to it. In some cases, they're also basically not listening and really just kind of letting you talk and talk and talk and talk whilst thinking about wanting to go home. But that's something we'll also set aside. But basically, you've got somebody who is very used to understanding you, no matter how bad your English is. They are also very used to being able to slow down their speech, remove the complex idioms and phrasal verbs and things like that from their speech. A good example of this, when I do one-on-one coaching, and this isn't something I do with you guys because it just costs an insane amount of money to do. My one-on-one coaching guys pay an insane amount of money to do it. But with my one-on-one clients, we do something called a judgment index, which is basically a kind of psychological assessment. I am not qualified to run that, so I do it with friend who is an expert in the judgment index and running this particular psychological assessment. She is awful at making herself understood to people who are learning English. So when we do those coaching calls, I really have to be there almost as a translator sometimes to make sure that people are understanding what she's saying, even though we're both speaking English, because she just fills her English with idiom and all kinds of fancy expressions and things like that. Whereas if I am talking to you like this, I want you to understand what I'm saying. So I am not talking to you now the same as I would a friend of mine, which really just makes something like this and just conversation with a teacher pretty crap as far as practice goes, because it's just completely different to what you would expect to get in the real world. So what happens with that is you then feel good in the conversation with the teacher. You then go out into the real world and talk to somebody who's not trained to understand you and be easy to understood. And it's like getting hit in the face with a sledgehammer. And you have just had no idea what's going on because it's just completely different. Suddenly the pressure's up, the speed at which they're talking is faster. They're using much different expression. They don't understand you because they're not used to understanding non-native English, and it all breaks down. So this is why we really want to be focused on real things like language exchange partners, conversation teachers. Yeah, if you want to do it, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, though it can arguably damage your confidence when you then go out into the real world and can't perform in the same kind of way. But although those things are kind of okay, really you want to be focused on real things that we actually do in the real world. Our practice and learning should always actually, in a sense, be harder than the real thing, because then we actually get something which is easier. So first and foremost, that's what you've got to understand, is that actually, although you believe you have practiced and prepared for that kind of situation, you actually haven't at all, because what you did was different. Completely different. So now you need to start thinking about these real world situations that are harder, that are scarier, that are going to make you go, oh my God, I don't understand a word of what this person is saying. You need to do more of that, basically. Combine that with the right kind of intensive focus learning. Yes, but you need to be doing more of this kind of high pressure stuff if you want to get good at that.